For 20 years, we've been creating innovation in the CX industry, and now we're seeking out brilliant new perspectives on CX you just won't find anywhere else. I'm Richard Owen. Welcome to the CX Iconoclast. My guest today is Joseph Pine, thought leader, academic, and co-author of The Experience Economy and multiple other works since then. I'll admit upfront to being a bit of a fanboy. Back in the late 90s, during my tenure at Dell, the experience economy had a profound impact on the way in which we thought about recharacterizing the PC industry away from being a commodity product sector to a business that could actually differentiate itself around the customer. In many ways, it was an idea that stuck with me and ultimately drew me into the customer experience industry years later. So, a personal example of how one brilliantly insightful idea can help shape people's interests and passions. Joe talks about the fact that 25 years since the book was first published, those years have done little to diminish the original idea. And in fact, the impact of digital experiences and the internet, nascent in the mid-90s, has only served to accelerate and amplify the shift to experiences. In addition, COVID has clearly been an inflection point for how everyday people think about experiences as opposed to just simple product consumption. And Joe makes the argument that AI will have a similar impact through its potential to create massive degrees of personalization of services and experiences. Our evolution to an experienced economy remains one of the most enduringly powerful ideas of the last 30 years, in my opinion. I do hope you enjoy our conversation. Joe, thank you very much for joining us today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Richard. Pleasure to be with you.
So, obviously, my first experience with your work was when you published the original Experience Economy, which I think was 1999, so I'm dating myself now. Although in some ways,
the 25th anniversary a couple of weeks ago, so yeah.
That's amazing. And like a lot of really, really good business books, and the Experience Economy was a really good business book.
Yep.
It stands the test of time in the sense that you could read it today and it would pretty much be as relevant. I know there's been potentially some updates as well, but it's as relevant today as it really was back then. And it certainly had a profound impact on me, and we can talk a bit more about the circumstances around that and its impact on Dell Computer in the 90s. But perhaps I'd like to start by asking you to sort of give a perspective over those 25 years, what you think has changed, if anything, from your original thesis, or to what extent has it simply come about as predicted?
Well, a couple of things. One, I always say we were not predictive. We were telling what was going on then, but you didn't yet see it, right? And once you open your eyes, once you understand it, then you see this shift from goods and services to experiences going on. And over the last 25 years, there isn't any principle, any framework that wasn't validated in the book. All the two subsequent editions, kept everything there, added some things. And there were some examples that didn't make it or don't sort of apply today. Obviously, the number one big thing that has changed since 1999 is the use of the internet and the web and smartphones and all that digital technology. And again, it doesn't invalidate any principles, but it extends some in how you do things. So like we talked in the book about how important the five senses are. Well, generally when you're talking digital, it's audio and video. You can do the other three senses. There are ways to do it, but they're much more difficult. They require separate equipment and that sort of thing. And so one of the things we talk about is, for example, you need to mix in memorabilia to your experience, but you need to add media, right? And you need to, if you can't engage the senses, you can invoke the five senses and so forth. But that and social media, the rise of that are two big things. I remember when smartphones first came about, I said the worst thing you want is for somebody to open up their smartphone and get out of your experience. Right. Well, with the rise of Instagram and all of that is, no, you want them to take it out, take a picture of it, want them to use that to remember. I noticed also over the last 4 or 5 years that people are using the word memory when they mean the word photo. Right? That I took a memory of that. No, right. You took a photo to enhance your memory, but I find that very interesting how that's going on. in the last 25 years also, you just continue to see that shift from how much less employment manufacturers have today than they did 25 years ago, how much less service had today, how much innovation there is in experiences. 25 years ago, there weren't escape rooms, did not exist. There wasn't this term competitive socializing. There weren't places where you go practice your golf swing with food and drink and putt jacks and top golf and axe throwing bars and all that sort of thing. We didn't have the notion of immersive art experiences like Meow Wolf or Van Gogh experiences and so forth. So there's a whole new set of genres of experience that have arisen since we published the book. So those are a couple of key things. Now, of course, AI is such a big deal. We got to be thinking about how that applies to everything as well.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on AI, but I think a couple of other interesting things that occurred fairly recently. I mean, first of all, there was a lot of research done that said that people are increasingly realizing that they value experiences over things. So if you do sort of the core cognitive research, you discover that what really counts for people at the end of the day are experiences. And I wonder whether or not COVID in some ways supercharged this phenomena. In some ways, COVID was a period of deprivation of experiences.
Right.
Exactly. You were sort of left with, you could consume products, you could get stuff, but the experiences we're all used to, whether it was dining out at a restaurant or going on vacation, that's what we really took away from people during COVID. And so this whole concept of kind of revenge travel and this sort of surge in people wanting to consume experiences, just look at the travel industry, right? The premiums that people placed on this perhaps that was a reflection of people once deprived of experiences, perhaps became more conscious of the high value of those.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Richard. As a result of COVID, there was huge pent-up demand, right? Because we could not do it. What we really miss is those shared experiences that we could have with our loved ones, with our family, with our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues, even complete strangers in arenas and so forth. And we couldn't have that. And so that tremendous pent-up demand basically meant that almost every sector of the experience economy that opened up after the pandemic immediately filled to capacity, right? People wanted to go out there. They wanted to be there. They wanted to be with other people. But I also see that there was a shift also from increasingly not wanting what I'll say is the mere memorable, right? The merely memorable. You have to be a true distinctive experience. It has to be memorable, but also people wanted highly meaningful experiences. Experiences that really touched them, that emotionally engaged them, that were more involved with others, that hit them where they live in terms of what they're trying to do in their own lives, what they're trying to be in their own lives, and now also from not just memorable, meaningful, but also to transformative experiences, experiences that change us in some way. So there's this gradation of experiences. And increasingly, because of the pandemic, and it had been happening already, but I think that boosted it, that jump-started it, and accelerated it to go from memorable to meaningful, and then even transformative experiences.
Do you think that when you look at the arc over these years, have companies embraced this as a practical philosophy in ways you expected? Or is it a case where, as you often see in business, 10% or 5% of the companies really get this and they go off and they do very, very well and they tend to dominate. And there's this sort of big lagging sort of effect where a lot of companies, for a variety of reasons, never quite sort of catch up. Has that been your experience?
That yes, largely. That's the way it goes with this, as with so many other, I'll use the word shifts. There's certainly not a fad. It's certainly not even a movement, but it really is a shift in economic value, because the core is that customers increasingly, not just consumers, but business customers increasingly want consumers. They'd rather spend their time in places that they value than in buying things, like you said, citing that research, which was mostly by Professor Tom Gilovich, did most of that research. So they do want those, the consumers want those, business customers want those, but companies don't always recognize that need. They are generally a little slow behind in doing it. Some lead the way. Of course, you think about Disney and Starbucks and then all of these new genres of experiences that are fully in the experience business, right? They're birthed in the experience economy. That gives them a leg up. But you see, I will give an example, grocery stores, right? You think of that as a fairly commoditized industry. It's a service industry. You're buying goods, but but they're not making the goods. They are merchandising them for you. And there are some that are very good. You've got Whole Foods with a lot of a lot of the different departments that are curated and so forth, and the interactions with people tend to be good. There's a few, like here in Minnesota where I live, Byerly's and Kowalski's are known for but it's generally just known for good service, right? That they have good customer service, and so it makes them better than the normal grocery store that doesn't. But I'll tell you, the most vibrant retail experience in the world is a grocery store, and that's Italy. Have you ever been to an Italy? Right?
No.
You haven't been there. Oh, you got to go there. In New York, Chicago, LA, most of the major cities they're in 10 countries around the world. They are based in Italy. When I first encountered them, I think in New York and then in Chicago, I assumed it was an American company because of the name, right? EATALY. I mean, what a beautiful Americanized name, but is in fact an Italian company. And their grocery stores are incredibly vibrant. You don't have the straight aisles like you do to a normal grocery store, right? They're more staked around. You find yourself, while you're shopping for groceries, and all of a sudden you find yourself in line at a cafe or maybe at a restaurant, which they have in there. They have not just it's all, the theme is basically a journey through culinary Italy. And they have everything that you can need to be able to cook Italian food. They even have a mission feed cooking school inside the grocery store that you can learn to become an Italian chef. You can get better at Italian cooking, which means you're going to buy more of the appliances and the food and everything that they have in the store. And the people watching aspect of it is amazing. The interactions are amazing. The products are amazing. And it's just a really great experience. And it's a grocery store. So the capability is there in every industry, but most don't do it.
How would you respond then to the idea that this could be constructed simply as a question of market segmentation, right? So if you take the example you just gave of a grocery store, which presumably is premium in terms of its pricing, and you say, that's great, that addresses a certain segment of the market, a certain amount of disposable income, that might be a very attractive profit pool, but it's going to be a segment of the market. Meanwhile, one of the big growth stories has been a brand like Lidl, right? Which is, again, sort of bare bones, let's strip things down, go for almost warehouse feel, right? So should we look at this through the lens of segments of the market? Is the experience economy tied fundamentally to being a premium economy?
No, it really isn't. I mean, obviously, the more money you have, the bigger, better, longer experiences you can have. But every socioeconomic level wants experiences. I mean, there are some people that, very rich people will spend $1 million on a birthday party, right? Wealthy people will go to American Girl Place and stay overnight for thousands of dollars. The middle class will go to Chuck E. Cheese's or a museum or some other place. But if you don't have that money, well, you go to a McDonald's Playland, right? And you buy burgers and food, and the kids get to play, and adults get to talk, and it's a great experience. Right. So whatever level you have, there are experiences that will be provided, that'll be out there for you. But again, the rich have that big advantage in terms of what they can spend at it. But it's also a matter of not market segmentation, but I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but of a segmentation of what you want at this time. One of the terms I actually do often use is it's about the multiple markets within each customer, right? That we want different things at different times. And increasingly what people want, why they go to a Lidl or an Aldi's is what my wife goes to, is that in fact we want goods and services to be commoditized, to be bought at the greatest possible convenience and the least possible price in order to spend our hard-earned money and our hard-earned time on the experiences that we value. And that's the key, is that what experiences are is time well spent, right? Services, goods and services provide time well saved, right? You save my time in doing things, but experiences are time well spent. People value the time that they spend with the company and all the things that they are staging for them. So yeah, let's get the goods and services at the lowest possible price, and then we'll go spend our time. So like, think of Italy as a date place, right? It's a venue for dating, number one, of meeting people, right, in your socioeconomic class, perhaps. But also, hey, let's go to the grocery store for a night out, and you go there, you go to get a cafe to start, you do some shopping, you go to the restaurant, then you have a great meal, then you come out, you check out, and you spend 3 hours, had a wonderful time.
I guess dating's changed a bit since my day, but yeah, I totally get your point. Changing subjects for a second, you raised the issue of AI. What's your perspective on the potential or the impact of this technology now on the way in which we think about creating experiences?
Yeah, several things. Is one, I think it will be a huge boon to the design of experiences, right? A lot of experience companies, they use storyboarding as a technique. And, where there are people actually drawing all these storyboard and trying to move, AI can just do that, beautifully. It can make recommendations and so forth. You have to be careful of it being algorithmic, right? Like Netflix has so much gotten, where all its movies are, driven too much by algorithm and not by what humans want, which is another key thing with AI. AI will be great at reducing the cost and the time of the core commodity type interactions, so that employees can then spend their time on the more intricate interactions and provide a level of human touch, right? And I'll mention here one of my favorite examples, which actually, well, let me mention something else because it relates to both of these. Well, my favorite examples of an experience platform is the Ocean Medallion on Princess Cruises from Carnival. And the other thing that AI does is help you better customize to people, help you to understand them as an individual, sift through all the interactions and everything, and be able to develop a profile of who you are and say, okay, this is what you're going to want. So the Ocean Medallion does that. It's actually, it's a Bluetooth and other device with different methods of communication that you just carry around, or you put in a watch band or an pendant around your neck and so forth on the cruise. And then it learns everything about you, and with a goal to providing the best possible services as well as the best possible experience. I mean, yeah, you can pay things for it, but it can even remember things like when you're on the pool deck with your kids, your favorite drink is an iced tea with no lemon. When you're in the bar with your buddies, it's a mojito. And when you're in a restaurant with your spouse, it's a glass of Shiraz, right? Same customer, multiple markets, even on that same one cruise, depending on where I am and what I'm looking for. And AI can all supercharge that. And John Padgett, who left Disney, the Magic Band project at Disney, to join Carnival and do this, the chief experience officer, now he's actually the president of Princess Cruises as well. Always like to talk about what one of the key things he's doing is he's freeing up the staff time so they can do what they do best, which is serve customers. And that's what you do. That's what I think AI in large measure can do, is better customize and free up time because humans will, as we saw with COVID again, right? Humans want human interactions. We are social beings. Right. We don't want to just be on chatbots and on voice response units. We want to talk to people, particularly when it matters.
So it seems to me like the potential that you're describing, which I agree with completely, is that we're able to gain efficiencies in the types of tasks where machines and automation are extremely effective, right? Which, and reinvest those efficiencies in making best use of our human capital. Of course, the risk is that companies simply try and pocket the change, right? So to some extent, they say, well, we're going to create some efficiencies. We'll just pocket it, and if anything, we'll see this as a substitute for human engagement. So We want to sort of dehumanize our offering because this represents an opportunity to sort of replace humans. And
Right.
that's the risk, right? At the end of the day, that seems like a fundamental misunderstanding of the opportunity associated with these technologies.
Exactly. That's called bad leadership. And that's the main reason why, when you talked earlier, Richard, about 5-10% people get it, some other large percentage, do bits and pieces, and then the great unwashed are out there. Is the bad leadership that don't understand what is going on and what the possibles really are. There's a classic academic dichotomy with any technology, not just AI, digital technology, smartphones, anything. Is you use it to automate people, right? In other words, put them, get rid of them, and do their tasks, or use it to augment people's skills and ability. And every technology comes along, you've got that. And there's some things that, yes, you want to automate, but if that's all you think of, and I think of like most all digital transformation projects they also are on the automation side, and forget about what value could we create of this if we augment our people's abilities to create more value for customers, which then returns to our own revenues and profits.
Well, I think your point on digital transformation is absolutely right. There's a tendency to either look at it through the lens of technology. We have technology, therefore we can use it, or look at it through the lens of simple cost reduction masquerading as transformation, right? We're just trying to eliminate cost structure, as opposed to thinking of it as an opportunity to create better products, better services, better experiences at cost, or perhaps even associated with cost reduction, but certainly create additional customer value. Because a lot of the core of what I always thought was your hypothesis around the experience economy was really one of an economic argument, right? At the heart of it, it's like, this is where the money is, right? And companies that are smart about this see this is where the profit pools are going to exist, and they're going to build capabilities to address those profit pools. And to some extent, if you get left behind, you end up getting crammed down into sections of the market where that profit pool is essentially drained, and you simply end up with being in the wrong end of this business value. And so this is fundamentally an economic choice at the end of the day. Go where the opportunities and money is.
Right. And one of the things I'm chagrined to admit and contemplate, in fact, I'm writing an article on this, is that one of my icons of the experience economy, Starbucks, is now doing that to itself. It's self-commoditizing itself, right? I mean, I've long talked about, because here's the economic argument in brief, right? What does a cup of coffee cost when you use the beans to make it yourself, right? When you actually buy the beans from farmers get 2 or 3 cents per cup of coffee. That's what a commodity is worth. Then manufacturers take that coffee, they grind it, roast it, package it, put it on a grocery store shelf. Now they get 5, 10, maybe 15 cents per cup of coffee. Haven't run the numbers lately with all the inflation we have, but order of magnitude. And then you want the service of somebody making it for you in a vending machine, first of all, or in a corner diner, or in a bodega, a kiosk, a 7-Eleven, a Dunkin' Donuts somewhere. Now you're $1.50, $2.50. But you go to a Starbucks with the ambiance and theater that it has, and the amount of time you actually spend in the place enjoying that cup of coffee, reading, socializing, gaming, working, whatever it is. And now you're spending $4, $5, $6, increasingly $7 or $8 for a cup of coffee that has only 2 or 3 cents in it. But Starbucks' new leadership, right, and actually started in the old leaders, but is increasingly commoditizing itself, right? They're using technology. They no longer write your name on the cup, and often getting it wrong. We write your name on the cup with your order, right? They goes right from your app to there, or they type it up on the computer, and then it prints out, which they slap on the cup, right? That's personalized, but it's no longer personal, right? That's the problem. And it's so many with other interactions. Taking the coffee smells out of the place, taking the comfy chairs out of the place, making mobile ordering such a big deal that that it ruins the experience for people who actually do want to stay in there. And so, so even if you've made it, so to speak, and I don't think, there is an experience stage other than Disney maybe that's made it as much as Starbucks, you still have to be wary of those choices that you make.
Interesting interesting observation about Starbucks. Back in the 90s, I was in Japan when they opened the very first Starbucks in Tokyo. And I remember an interview with the general manager for Starbucks in Japan. And Japan had a coffee shop on every corner, right? It wasn't like there was a shortage of places you could buy coffee. And of course, Japan had this strong tradition of extreme service. People would bow to you as you walk into department stores. The general manager for Starbucks in Japan said, our differentiation will be our people and the attitude that they exude to customers, which for the Japanese seemed crazy because, look, we've invented this. We really understand this. And they were so convinced that they could do a better job of culturally engaging people as they walk through the purchase experience, that would be a differential for them. And I really think they pulled it off back then, which in an economy like that was amazing. Seems a long way removed, as you say, from the idea that we're taking mobile orders, slapping it in a queue somewhere. And, at the end of the day, we're sort of just coming in and literally consuming the core product, not the experience.
Right, exactly. And that, that's, you see that in other industries, and you see people that still have that mindset. I always come down, it's the mindset they have for how they create economic value, for how they treat customers, for what their business is about, that prevents them from making that shift from goods and services to experiences.
So one of the things I wanted to touch on, and I know we're sort of running a little bit short of time now, but you're writing now, in quite a different way. You're starting to sort of publish and almost crowdsource your latest book. Tell us a little bit about that and how that's working out and what you're learning from the experience.
Yeah. So first, the subject of the book, which is the economic offering after experiences, right? And that's where you use experiences as the raw material to guide people to change, to help them achieve their aspiration, right? We call that a transformation, where you transform people. And increasingly people want those transformations. They want help in losing weight and gaining more well-being and being more fit and becoming a better golfer or tennis player or pickleball player or whatever it is. There's this great desire for change in our lives to help us be who we want to be. And so it's something that's actually been there from the very beginning, right? The last two chapters of the experience economy, in fact, talk about transformations. But I was often asked, when are you going to write the full book on it? And I said, well, one, the world isn't ready for it. And two, I don't know enough about it, right? Well, finally, over the last few years, it's very clear that the world is ready for it. And I spent a lot of time, learning more about it. So I could have written this book like a year ago, and I didn't. And I said, I just need to get into book writing mode in that. And so I talked to some friends, particularly Eddie Yoon of the Category Pirates. It's a great Substack you can get. Suggested I create a Substack offering where I put out my writing and I get feedback from it, and then can adjust what I'm doing, can learn more things. And but the first reason I do it is as a catalyst, right? There are now over 600 people who are on my Substack. Over about 12% of those are paying. Most are free where you don't get everything, but 12% of those are paying. Normal Substack is 5%, so that's very gratifying. And these people are waiting for, are there because I'm going to write for them. So that catalyst has caused me to much more write than I otherwise would have. In fact, so much I think I'll be able to get it done this fall, and then publish it sometime next year, hopefully in the spring. And the feedback has been great. There was one time I had two different models right here. Developed two different 2x2s for types of transformative experiences. They were at odds with each other, right? Didn't have the same axes, but there was one box that was the same, and in one axis, one framework I really like this box, and another framework I really like this box. And so basically, I wrote them both up. I put them out there, and I actually had I had a form to say, should I use both of these? Should I use neither of these? Or should I use this one? Or should I use that one? Or don't know, right? And over 40% of the people said both. 25% of the people or so said this one, and 12% said that one, but 25% said neither, and I'm like, well, that is not overwhelmingly good results. So it caused me, I would want like at least 80% before I'd say, okay, that's good. So it caused me to totally rethink things. And I came up with a new framework or I published it on Thursday. By Friday, I got enough results that I said, okay, I think I need to think, and that bothered me, right? I didn't have it right. And I spent most of the afternoon on Friday, several hours on Saturday, a couple on Sunday. And by Sunday, I had the framework and what it was, spent more time on Monday to refine it. And then was able to write that up and like the next Thursday, publish it and see what you think. And so that one got overwhelming positives, right? That people really loved it. So to think that I would have made that decision on my own and have a substandard framework in the book, would have really bothered me. But this because of the Substack, it just made a huge, huge difference.
Well, it strikes me, two things. One thing, reflecting on your comment that ultimately, self-actualization has become, a sort of catalyst for transformation, right? And again, I think COVID might have been a big accelerant of that. Changed people's attitudes towards their lives. And I think there's a natural tendency, as you say, personal transformation becomes much more important for people. But also it strikes me that what you're doing with the book in some ways is you're creating an experience for the people who are participating in the book, right? These are your most engaged customers, and they are getting utility and a higher value from their sense of participation and feeling like they're stakeholders in this exercise, right? This co-creation value. And in a way, that's a model for how any company or any business can think about its most valuable customers. And in fact, one of our guests historically here, Das Nariandas from Harvard, always used to articulate that your best customers were actually the ones who want to co-create product with you. They were the ones that really wanted to be part of that. And I think you're putting that into practice with the latest work, and I think that's pretty exciting. I just want to wrap up with one observation, Joe, because one of the things that I think I mentioned to you was back in the mid-90s, the then CIO at Dell Computer Corporation, Jerry Gregoire, made a dinner speech to an amassed group of the Dell executive team and basically told the story of the birthday cake, which if people aren't familiar with, they need to go back and reference your original book as this wonderful sort of, it's not really a metaphor, it's really a sort of example of the migration of a product into a full experience. And it really prompted, I think, a lot of what we thought of at the time from being an industry that was commodity orientated, a personal computer, which was a very specific device. I mean, at the end of the day, a Dell personal computer wasn't radically different than a Compaq or an HP computer, Morris. Sorry to say this. It was cheaper than Morris's Compaq efforts, but it was nevertheless basically the same product. But the idea that in a commodity market or a market which was so keenly focused on price, actually was still at the end of the day, the profit pools were around building experiences and having us think about how that was transformed. It made a big impact. And I think that it's an illustration of how any business, no matter how much it thinks of itself as a commodity business or how much it thinks price competition dominates the equation, needs to sort of get out of its shell and think that these profit pools are going to exist in the cracks in between where you can actually create real innovation and ideas that change, as you say, change customers' value perception of you as a brand. And so my personal journey, I have to say, has been highly linked with the work you've done over the years. So it's a great pleasure to have this chance to sort of catch up. And let me say thank you very much for joining us today, and also congratulations on the staying power of your original work and the new work, which I've been tracking and see the updates. And I think this concept of transformation, even though it's an overused word, it's certainly very timely now, I think, for people.
Well, I appreciate that, Richard. All of those comments, the story and your own personal story, are very gratifying to hear. And it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thanks for listening to the CX Iconoclast from OCX Cognition. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss any of our thought-provoking conversations. And please get in touch if you want to learn more about what OCX Cognition's predictive CX analytics platform can do for your business by providing complete insights into every account, continuously updated and connected to operations. You'll find contact info in the show notes.